They told you America was founded by pious pilgrims, principled statesmen, and industrious farmers. They forgot to mention the buccaneers. Forget the dusty parchment of the Constitution for a moment. Forget the powdered wigs and the debates over tariffs. The real, astonishing truth of American prosperity, the very engine that powered the colonial economy and laid the rails for the future U.S. dollar, was built on a foundation of sun-bleached cedar, salty oaths, and a vast clandestine network of organized crime stretching from the Bahamas to Boston and from Madagascar to Manhattan. This is the tale of how the most shocking crime wave in history didn't just rattle the British Empire, it financed the birth of the United States. The unholy catalyst, Spanish silver and English hunger. The roots of the American fortune lie in a European political impasse and a geopolitical obsession, the Spanish gold stream. Through the 17th century, Spain was the unquestioned titan of the world, a crown built upon the mountain of silver and gold extracted from the mines of Peru and Mexico. Each year, the magnificent, heavily armed plate fleet sailed, carrying the wealth of an empire back to Seville. England, France, and Holland watched in hungry frustration. They were forbidden by Spain's laws from trading with these colonies, creating an absolute economic chokehold. The only way to get a piece of that fortune, to inject desperately needed hard currency into their nascent colonial ventures, was through predation. Initially, this was masked by the thin veneer of a letter of marque, privateering, a king's license to steal from an enemy ship during wartime. But when the wars ended, the habits of violence and the addiction to easy wealth did not. Tens of thousands of seasoned, unemployed sailors refused to return to the starvation wages and brutal discipline of merchant ships. They turned their predatory instincts inward, viewing the entire maritime world as their prize. The crucible of this new radicalized seafaring class was the Caribbean. From the ashes of Spain's control rose havens like Tortuga, and most famously Port Royal, Jamaica. Port Royal was, for a time, the richest and most wicked city on earth, a melting pot of gold, rum, and depravity, openly sheltering pirates in exchange for a slice of their loot. But a catastrophic earthquake in 1692 swallowed Port Royal whole, scattering the brethren of the coast and forcing them to seek new, less visible ports of call, ports that led them directly up the coast to the American colonies. The Republic of Outlaws in Nassau. The true glorious dawn of the golden age of piracy began with disaster. On July 31st, 1715, a hurricane off the coast of Florida annihilated the annual Spanish plate fleet, leaving mountains of gold and silver coins scattered across the shallow reefs. The news spread like wildfire among the seafarers. This was not merely rich salvage, it was an invitation to an economic free-for-all. The pirates coalesced around the tiny, indefensible settlement of Nassau in the Bahamas. Here, with no effective British government, they established a radical, self-governed society, the Republic of Pirates. It was a utopia of outlaws, where the most notorious captains, Benjamin Hornigold, Stede Bonnet, the gentleman pirate, and the legendary Edward Blackbeard Teach gathered. Perhaps the most surprising figure was Black Sam Bellamy, an impoverished Englishman who quickly became known as the richest pirate in history. Bellamy, the Prince of Pirates, operated under a surprisingly egalitarian code, viewing himself as a righteous rebel against the aristocratic tyranny of the British Crown. His great prize, the slave ship Witta Galley, was a floating testament to the wealth he commanded, a wealth that was about to be pumped directly into the colonial ports of North America. New York's secret handshake. Why did this republic of thieves matter to the austere colonies of New England and the mid-Atlantic? The answer was currency. The British Empire, by policy, enforced mercantilism. Colonies were meant to supply raw materials and buy finished goods only from Britain. They were forbidden to develop industries and, crucially, were denied a reliable, unified supply of British sterling. The colonial economies were constantly starved of hard money to facilitate trade. Enter the pirates. Colonial governors, merchants, and landowners quickly realized the buccaneers were a spectacular solution to their cash flow problems. A pirate ship sailing into an American harbor was a floating bank. They carried Spanish silver pieces of 8, the universally accepted currency of the age, along with silks from India, rare spices, and Chinese porcelain, all stolen from British, Dutch, or Spanish ships. The pirates needed to convert their goods into supplies: food, water, naval stores, and most importantly, rum. The colonists needed the goods, and desperately, the silver. In New York, the complicity was institutionalized. Governors like Benjamin Fletcher actively protected and sheltered pirates. Under his tenure, New York became a pirate hub where stolen cargo was laundered into legitimate trade goods. Merchants like Frederick Phillips grew fabulously wealthy running smuggling rings that connected New York to the pirate bases, supplying them with arms and receiving silver and slaves in return. This illegal, pirate-fueled trade was not a marginal activity. It was a foundational engine of the colonial economy, building the merchant fortunes that would later become the backbone of revolutionary finance.
The Madagascar Connection and the Betrayal of Captain Kidd. As the Caribbean waters grew hotter, a secondary, even more lucrative route developed, the Madagascar Run. Pirates sailed from the Americas around the Cape of Good Hope to the Indian Ocean, where they plundered the fabulously rich Moorish ships traveling to and from India. The line between state and crime was utterly erased by the bizarre case of Captain William Kidd. A respectable Scottish privateer based in New York, Kidd was commissioned by a syndicate of powerful English and American aristocrats, including New York's Governor Bellomont, to hunt the Madagascar pirates. The mission was a thinly disguised investment scheme. But upon reaching the Indian Ocean, Kidd's crew, restless and greedy, convinced him to seize the Quedagh Merchant, an immense treasure ship. Kidd knew the score. The wealth from the East was so vast that a single prize could make his fortune. When he returned to New York, expecting a hero's welcome, his former backers, fearing the crown's retribution, framed him. Kidd was hanged in London in 1701, becoming a scapegoat for the entire colonial conspiracy of piracy and profit. His trial revealed the deep, uncomfortable truth: the piracy that enriched America was financed by its own elites. The Great Pardon and the irony of Reformation. The continuous complaints from the powerful East India Company and legitimate London merchants eventually forced the Crown's hand. The pirates were simply too successful, and the colonial governments were becoming too rich and independent due to the illicit trade. The decision was made to crush the Republic of Pirates. In 1718, Captain Woodes Rogers arrived in Nassau with a fleet and a royal proclamation: a full pardon for any pirate who surrendered immediately. The decision split the outlaw society. Many, including Bellamy's mentor, Benjamin Hornigold, accepted the pardon. This is the astonishing pivot. The most experienced pirates, now wealthy and forgiven, immediately flipped. They became state-sanctioned pirate hunters and colonial officials, using their intimate knowledge of the sea and the criminal network to help the Crown dismantle the system they had created. Their illegal fortunes were laundered into legitimate colonial estates, securing their place in the emerging American aristocracy. Others refused, none more famously than Blackbeard. A master of psychological warfare who terrorized the shipping lanes with smoke and cannon fire, Blackbeard retreated to the protection of North Carolina's convoluted waterways, operating with the direct protection of the corrupt Governor Charles Eden.
His brazen act of blockading Charleston Harbor in South Carolina, a clear act